Good day, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. It's the fourth step of the course series portfolio series, Determining Your Tape Construction. I am Jim Berzaitis, and I will be your moderator for today's event. For clarity, the audio lines will be muted. If you'd like to submit a question, use the chat tool located on your screen. Time permitting, all questions will be answered at the end of the webinar. If your question is not answered during the event, we will contact you directly to provide your answer. Upon registration, you should have received a digital copy of the course series product selection tool. It would be beneficial to have a printed copy of the file handy or the file open for reference during the presentation, as we will be citing examples. If you would like a hard copy of the tool, please contact your Avery Dennison account manager. Today's presenters are Avery Dennison Performance Tapes Application Engineer Scott Krusinski and General Industrial Product Manager Deanne Lewis. To get started, I will now hand over to Deanne.
Thanks, Jim. And thank you everyone on the phone for taking time out of your day to join us for the fourth and final webinar of the series, Step 4, Determining What Your Construction Is and what is needed for your process. Hopefully by now everyone has been working with the course series tool and is finding the program easy to use. The course series tool is designed to educate your organization on the key informational needs that are required to quote your customer quickly and effectively. The portfolio is meant to cover the majority of your bonding needs, and we will continue to evaluate and adapt the portfolio as needed to meet our customer requirements. So the key takeaway from this next slide is that there is a new updated course series selection guide coming out in January of 2021. We're excited to offer a pure acrylic adhesive category to the course series family. In addition, we'll be rolling out some new products for the low VOC category. We've also added some new width options for some of our more popular adhesives. You're welcome to contact your sales rep for a hard copy. They'll also be sending out some to your organization at the beginning of the year. And we'll also have the updated copy on the website effective January 1st, 2021. So just a quick reminder, the course series tool has been designed to walk you through the tape selection process. Step 1, understanding what we'll be laminating to. Step 2, understanding the surface energy that the part will be bonded to. Step 3, considering end-use requirements. And step 4, choosing the construction and liner combination that will be the most friendly for the manufacturing process and for the application. So just a quick overview. On the left side of the page is the adhesive type or family, followed by the product. And then in the next column is the construction, which will be something we'll be referencing quite a bit today. In addition, the liner option for each of those particular products, followed by the ordering information, which includes the spec, the MOQ, the width and minimum length, the lead time, and then you can see the thickness there. So it's broken down by the unwide side, the carrier, the liner side adhesive, and then the total thickness of the entire combination of the unwind, the liner, and the carrier, and then, of course, with and without the liner. So it helps aid in figuring out if you're looking for a specific thickness in your product, you can reference that last column for finding a like thickness that you're looking for. In addition, there's some other information in here regarding which products are slittable. You'll see that noted with an asterisk. And the items in blue are approved under Title 21 for Federal Code of Regulations for indirect glue contact. And moving on, I'm going to turn it over to Scott so he can talk to you about the fourth step of the process.
Thanks, Deanne. Hi, everybody. So today's focus, again, is going over the fourth step of our four-step process here, which is determining your tape construction. We do have the webinars from previous recordings available on YouTube if you wanted to review what those are. But today we'll be going through the different types of constructions we have available in the course series. along with the different carriers and Facestocks, also the different liners available, and then we'll also take you through a few examples here today. So first up, we have constructions. And you can see here that Avery Dennison offers a variety of different tape constructions within the course series and definitely beyond the course series as well. The tape construction I would define as basically the material stack up of our tape, okay? So if you look at these, you can see there's a different amount of materials going on here. But basically what's going on here is that there's liners and Facestocks and carriers that are combined with different layers of adhesives to create the specific constructions. And you can see here that we have transfer tapes. So the first one up here is a single liner transfer tape. Transfer tapes are intended for lamination to flexible rolled or sheeted materials. So this would include your foams and your felts, flocks, other types of films, etc. The liner is along for the ride, even after lamination and die cutting, but then the liner is removed upon part application to the final substrate at the end user. So as a review of the components that consist of a single liner transfer tape, you have an unsupported layer of pressure-sensitive adhesive. And what's interesting about this, if you were to touch this by hand and poke at the adhesive would pull away with your finger, and you'd get a big gooey mess. Okay, so that's the key here with transfer tapes. It's an unsupported layer of pressure-sensitive adhesive. And we almost exclusively recommend transfer tapes for industrial-style laminations. Okay, the next component is the liner. And again, this construction, oh, Jim, if you can go back real quick. This is just a single liner here. And what Avery Dennison Performance Tapes has the capability of doing, which is a great capability, is that we can release coat our own liners, okay? What allows this tape to unwind properly is the fact that we're able to coat different release coatings to either side of the liner to make sure that it unwinds properly, okay? So where the adhesive is touching the inside of the liner, we call that the liner side. And where the adhesive is removing from the outer lap of the roll, we call that the unwind side. Those release coatings on either side of the liner there are different in order to allow a release ratio to make sure that the adhesive remains properly on the one side. Some examples of products within the core series are going to be the FT1126 and our HPA 1905. The next one we have here is just a play off of the single liner transfer tape, except now it's double linered. So again, we have an unsupported layer of pressure-sensitive adhesive, but this time we have two liners. One liner is going to be called the process or easy liner. That liner must be removed before lamination in order to expose the adhesive. And then there is another liner that will stay behind upon lamination and die cutting. That's called the functional or tight side liner. And there's a couple reasons why we would do a double liner transfer tape versus a single liner. One of the reasons being that you can get a lower release overall. So if you were laminating to a delicate material and you needed a lighter release and you still needed a transfer tape, this would be the type of construction to work with. There's also other reasons for having double liners. The other reason might be that perhaps you're applying a sticker or some type of sticker tab on top of the, on the opposite side of the liner that remains behind after die cutting, okay? That allows, because there's no release coating on it, that would allow your sticker tab to be able to stick to it. An example product of this construction would be our FT3043. Okay, now we're moving on to double coated tapes. And these are similar to transfer tapes in that they're both categorized as double-sided tapes. Okay, either side will be sticky from these tapes. But double coateds are going to be incorporating a carrier. Okay, again, just like transfer tapes, they're intended for laminating to rolled or sheeted flexible materials like foams and fabrics. But what's different here is going to be that carrier. That carrier in the middle there, sandwiched between two layers of adhesive, provides dimensional stability, and it helps reduce ooze for easier converting and application. Most of our double-coated tapes in the course series are going to be thin double-coated tapes, but we do offer a range of double-coated foam tapes. And double-coated foam tapes are a little different, where the carrier there is going to be a thin foam that's not usually intended for laminating to flexible materials. This would be intended as bonding two rigid parts together, okay? So an example I have for that is soap dispensers. Okay, this double-coated foam tape can be die cut out. It can be applied to the back of a soap dispenser. The liner can be removed, and then it can be applied to the wall. And you know, you want this foam for bonding rigid materials together because it has gap-filling properties. But going back to double-coated tapes in general here, you know, we're going to have two layers of the same adhesive that are sandwiching the carrier in between. We're going to have a couple different carrier materials within the core series. The most common is going to be polyester film. We're going to talk about these different ones here in a second. And then there's going to be, again, a release liner. And it's just like a single liner transfer tape in the fact that we'll have a release coating on either side there so that the tape can remove properly. The examples of this product construction within the core series are going to be FBA 8960, FBR 8950, and then a double-coated foam tape example is FM 2454. Okay, now we have a little spin on the double-coated style here. What's different about double-coated differentials versus regular double-coateds is that we're going to have two different adhesives that are sandwiching that carrier together, okay? So an example of that would be FT 8392. And we have other examples in the core series as well, and there's reasons why we do this. So specifically for the 8392 version, the bottom adhesive, as shown in the diagram there, is adhesive 2. That's the one that gets laminated to your flexible material. The one in 8392 is an acrylic adhesive that is optimized for bonding to polyurethane foams. Now that acrylic adhesive would not be so great for bonding to low surface energy plastics, so we coat a different adhesive on the other side for adhesive 1. And in this particular case for 8392, we coat a rubber adhesive, which is great for sticking to polypropylene. Next, Jim. Okay, and the final construction we have to discuss today with you guys in the core series is the single-coated construction. This is going to be different than the double-sided tapes because this tape is taking out half of the work that converters do. This construction will be pre-laminated with a Facestock. It's very much like a double-coated tape in the fact that there is a material there where the adhesive is permanently anchored to. Instead of a carrier, we're going to call it a Facestock. We have a variety of Facestocks available within the core series, specifically aluminum foil and flock. Outside of the core series and just in the general tape world, there's going to be a wide variety of different Facestock materials available as well. And then we're still going to have a single liner. Now, in this situation, we only need to release coat one side of that release liner because the adhesive is just going to remove from that side. And we can wind these tapes in either way here, so that the liner is facing out or that the Facestock is facing out. Okay, now we're going to get into carriers and Facestocks, specifically examples of them. So these are just common ones. Again, there's a lot of different materials that we can incorporate in tapes in the tape world here, but I would say the most popular one that we have available is polyester film, the top line there. Polyester film is a plastic film. It's generally 0.5 mil or 1 mil thick. It has excellent strength. It's going to be clear, and its conformability is generally poor relative to these other ones. If some of you aren't familiar with what polyester might be, the quickest example I have for you is disposable water bottles. Everybody knows what it's like to grab one of those and crinkle it. That sound is just a feature of the polyester polymer that happens there. If you compare that to other thin carriers such as tissue on the third line there, tissues are around the same thickness, again only 1 mil thick, very thin. these have pore strength. You can actually tear this by hand pretty easily. And of course, it's like a woven, non-woven like material. It's going to be off-white, but it has excellent conformability. And where conformability is important is especially around for foam bonding around contours. Okay, so if you have an EPDM foam bonding around a corner of some kind of molded plastic, polyester film has poor conformability and will kind of want to fight that contour a little bit. And if you don't have enough surface area and if you have the wrong adhesive, you might get lifting that occurs. So one way for us to account for that is to offer a tissue carrier, which has better conformability and will not fight that adhesion as much. Next up, we have scrim. Scrim is interesting. It's like a fiber material that's in an open grid pattern. It's kind of woven. It almost looks like fishing line that's been sewn together in a grid-like pattern. Its typical thickness is about 1 mil. And it has similar properties to tissue in the fact that it has excellent conformability. Now, what's great about scrim versus tissue, though, is that it has great tensile strength as well. And then the color here is it's clear, but it's going to appear just like almost like a fishing line, if you will. Similar to tissue is non-woven. This is the next one here. This will have just a little more strength. Everything else about it, though, is very much similar like to tissue. And those are the main thin carriers. Another carrier available, and that I kind of talked about with the double-coated foam, is polyethylene foam. This is going to be much thicker, and again, this is for rigid material bonding because gap filling is required. The polyethylene foams available within the core series are going to be a 32nd, a 16th, and an 1/8 inch thick. 1/8 inch starts getting pretty thick for a tape. You're going to need this for rigid material bonding because there will be slight differences in the tolerance of these materials, and you do need that gap filling capability. So those first 5 that I mentioned are primarily the popular carriers within the tape world and especially in the core series. The last 2, foil and flock, are almost exclusively used as Facestocks, especially in the core series here. So foil is first up here. It's usually available between 1 to 5 mils. It has excellent strength. Of course, it's going to look like aluminum or a metallic-like color, but it does have poor conformability relative to these other materials within this table here. That being said, it still can be quite conformable. We sell quite a bit of HVAC mechanical insulation foil tapes that get wrapped around ducts, and those can still have conformable properties. The last example I have here is a flock. Flock is, it looks like a fabric basically. It's a woven fabric. Ours is black. It's 30 mils thick, so it's a little thicker than these other materials. It has excellent strength, and it has moderate conformability. And flock is used for buzz, squeak, and rattle applications. So in automotive, when you have plastic components that are butted up next to each other, the car moves around and shakes and vibrates. Those plastic parts might rattle and buzz next to each other. So to prevent that from happening, you can insert a flock tape on one side, and now one side of that plastic is going to brush up against that flock, and it's not going to make any noise. And we all like a nice quiet car when we're driving. Okay, so we've talked about Facestocks and carriers, and now we're going to get into liners. Again, this is the backbone of tapes. This is what we coat adhesives to, and then we laminate these other things in. The liner is there along the ride, and then it gets removed upon application at the end-use substrate. So we have a variety of liner options available in the core series. There's going to be paper or craft, also known as SCK. We'll have polycoated craft, PCK, 12-point board, which is the middle on the left there. It looks like cardboard. And we have polypropylene film, the middle right. And then in the bottom left, we have polyester film. Again, that's a clear version of it. There sometimes are white versions, but in the core series, it's primarily going to be clear. And then finally, we have glassine there in the bottom right, that yellow-looking one. So we'll take you through each of those. So the first one up is paper or craft. This is going to be the most common throughout the foam bonding tape world, if you will. It's economical, and that's a big reason why. It's easy to work with when manufacturing tape, and it's probably the most common liner in the core series. There are going to be some trade-offs with this material, though. Oh, you know, hang on, guys. 1 second here. My screen just went dark on me. Okay, we're back. I need to remember to move my mouse there. Sorry about that. Okay, so these paper or craft SEK liners come with a few trade-offs, though. It's usually going to be around moisture or humidity resistance. Occasionally in the very humid summer months, this liner will soak up some moisture, and you might get a few wrinkles on the outer laps. But I assure you it's not a problem throughout the entire roll. You simply have to remove the outer lap or two, and those wrinkles should go away. But that being said, we have other liners that are going to offer better moisture or humidity resistance. Next, please, Jim. Okay, next up is polycoated kraft, PCK. It's very much the same as SCK, except this time the paper is going to be sealed with 2 layers of polyethylene on either side. Polyethylene is a plastic, and this plastic is going to be able to help it retain its flatness and then also prevent those moisture wrinkles or any type of other wrinkling that might be occurring. So you can imagine we're introducing a little more material here. It's going to come at a little more of a premium versus the SCK. Next up is the 12-point board. This is similar to polycoated kraft, but I would just say it's a beefier version of that. It's thicker, so much so that it almost feels like a cardboard. It provides stiffness, and it makes removing the liner very easy by hand, okay? So you can imagine different liners being laminated to a foam. This being the thickest available, you can quickly grab your thumb at it and remove it. But also, because of its stiffness, it's great for cookie sheet die cut part presentations, okay? So that sounds just kind of strange if you don't know what I'm talking about, so I'll kind of describe it here. Basically, you could die cut out some small parts. For example, let's just say, you know, underneath your dining room table chairs, there are felt die cuts that are stuck onto the bottom so that you can slide your chair around easily on your wood floors. Those would be a felt material that were laminated with an adhesive. So to make application of those parts easy for the end user, you could cut out 5 by 5 circles of these little felt pads and have it on a larger piece of the liner that's something like, I don't know, 10 inches by 10 inches, for example. And it makes it easy to remove those parts and to quickly apply those by hand. This could be applied to a lot of applications, especially in automotive and appliances. Okay, the next liner type is polypropylene film. Now we're in the plastics range. We were just in the more of the fibrous material range here, and now we're switching over to plastics, and you can imagine that the water resistance is going to improve. The dimensional stability and tear resistance especially is going to improve with polypropylene film. Polypropylene has excellent tear resistance, and that's a main reason why that liner is used. So if you have a large, complex, patterned, stamped out part where you're removing it, and because of the geometry, you would have had tears with other materials, polypropylene will do a better job of resisting that and will not tear and will come off cleanly in one piece, which could save your customers time. Next up is polyester film. Again, this is in the plastics category. It's water resistant and dimensionally stable. But what's different here versus polypropylene is that if it gets nicked, it can tear very easily, okay? You can't pull this film apart by hand and tear it, but if there's a slight little cut and you gently tear it at that seam, it's going to rip very easily. It's how the polymers are oriented in that type of film. Now, that being said, it has great Z-directional stability. So when you're doing high precision die cutting with these small parts and maybe you're kiss cutting to a very tight degree, this is your go-to liner. These liners are used a lot in electronics and small part type of applications. And finally, the last liner to discuss here is glassine. This is a very economical liner, and it's actually very similar to SEK in that it's like a paper material, except glassine uses different fibers. It's denser, and it's going to have different top coats. So it's going to have poor tear and tensile strength, but it has much better moisture resistance than the SEK. So you won't get those moisture wrinkles, and you can do things like water jet die cutting with this material easier. So we have a table summarizing the attributes here, and this is in the product selection tool, again, for your reference at any time here. And it kind of covers what I was just talking about: tensile strength, tear resistance, conformability, humidity resistance, and then we kind of get into the convertibility, if you will: rotary die cutting, kiss cutting, water jet die cutting. If the circle is empty, that means we would not particularly recommend it for that type of situation. If it's half filled, it means it should be good enough. If it's fully filled, that's where it's highly recommended. So just to compare a few again here, just the Papercraft SCK, you can see that it has poor tensile strength, poor tear resistance, poor humidity resistance, but it kind of works well for kiss cutting and rotary die cutting. Compare that to polypropylene, for example: much better tear resistance, better conformability, better humidity resistance, but might not be so great in some other properties. So that's always handy dandy there to reference here. Okay, we're going to go to Deanne real quick. She's going to cover a survey here, and I'm going to have some commentary on it.
All right, thanks, Scott. So during the registration process, we asked what is the most common pain point when it comes to release liners. The number one response was not knowing or understanding the release values and getting the right or correct release. Number two was difficulty starting a peel and issues with liner tear. And number three was liners with a clean cut upon slitting or die cutting. So Scott, do you have any additional comments that you'd like to add to the responses?
Yeah, so I'll break them down, each one of them here. Number one, not knowing or understanding the release values and getting the right release. So I'll break that up into two parts here. First of all, getting the right release. So I believe I mentioned earlier that Avery Dennison Performance Tapes coats our own liners, release coatings in line as we manufacture the entire tape product. And I can ensure you when we're designing these tape products, getting the right release is one of the most important things we have to do, because otherwise the tape might not function properly. Transfer tapes, as I mentioned before, to get the adhesive to remain properly on the right side of the liner, we have what we call a 3-to-1 release differential, where the force required to remove from the inside, where it's supposed to stay behind, is 3 times greater than the unwind of the roll. So that allows it to unwind nicely. For double-coated tapes, you generally want a 2-to-1 release ratio, but double-coated tapes have some forgiveness because you have that dimensional stability because of that carrier there. When it comes to not knowing or understanding the release values, this is something that might be specific to specific applications. We know sometimes release can be very important for your application, especially in examples like dispensing, where you might have small parts that are being dispensed in an automated way. And that's where you can reach out to our customer service, your account manager, and ultimately our technical services team who can help you in your application. We can do testing, we can provide samples, we can do all these things to make sure that you're getting the release you need. If the right tape's not doing it, we have a wide variety of tapes that are capable of a wide range of release values. Number two here, difficulty starting a peel and issues with liner tearing. I'll break this up into two parts again here. Issues with liner tearing, well, we kind of just discussed it. Different liners have different tear resistance. Polypropylene has excellent tear resistance, while the supercalendered craft or SCK might not have the best tear resistance. So If you're having liner tear issues, it might be a situation where you might want to switch liners. And that being said, the first part here, difficulty starting a peel, I'm going to interpret that as difficulty starting to remove the liner. I kind of mentioned it before on the 12-point board. It's all about how thick it is and easy to grab by your fingers to remove that liner here. So if you're having issues with the super calendared craft, we offer the 12-point board on a lot of the same products that makes it easy to grab at. And then the third one here, liners with a clean cut upon slitting / die cutting. I'm just going to interpret that as the most precise and clean cut when you're doing high precision type parts. My recommendation there is for polyester because it's so dimensionally stable in all directions, X, Y, and Z. You can really tighten down on your tolerances with your die cutting, and you should have a smooth go at it just because of the stability of it. So I think next here we have some examples to go through. And before we go directly into the examples, it's just a reminder about how to navigate selection, especially when it comes to constructions and liners here. So Deanne showed you the larger product selection tool and the portfolio and all the features within it. Again, we group our products by adhesive type within the core series. So just as this example here, we have the high performance low VOC acrylic, and below it we have the general purpose acrylic. As you move along those rows to the next column, you can see here that we have multiple products for that particular adhesive. And that's generally because we have different constructions. So for example, we have FT8270, which is a double-coated tissue tape using the high-performance low VOC acrylic, but we also have a transfer tape using the FT1149X, okay? So we clarify the construction in that next column. And then further, adding to the variety of products we have offering in the core series, we have different liner options. So for FT8270, we only offer one liner option within the core series. We might have other liner options, but the core series rules won't apply there. But for example, the FT1149X, we do have two different liner options. We have the 82-pound natural poly-coated craft, and then we also have the natural 12-point board. Natural, by the way, meaning just the cardboard-looking appearance of those materials. And this is the same story throughout the rest of these products. We're not going to offer every liner option for every single product, but there's a good spread of different products and different liners available depending on what we think is appropriate for each application. I should also clarify a few of the next points there, or columns. Spec number. This is what we call, within Avery Dennison, the 5-digit spec. And if you want to be absolutely clear about what product you're ordering, you want to make reference to this spec number here. So, for example, 57551 refers specifically to FT1149X on the 82-pound natural poly-coated craft. But if you were to enter 57553, that is specifically pertaining to the natural 12-point board version of FT1149X. Then there's other ordering information like the MOQ, the available roll dimensions for this specific configuration, the lead time behind it, and then some information about the thickness of each layer. So you'll see there, unwind side adhesive. So for double-coated tapes, that will show up as a dimension. So FT8270, the unwind adhesive is 2.4 mils. The carrier, tissue carrier for 8270 is about 2.2 mils. The liner adhesive, which is the adhesive on the other side there, is 2.4. We also display the liner thickness, and we do some math for you too here. Total thickness without liner, and then just total thickness, and that includes the liner. So now we'll get into some examples here. Example number 1, your customer, an appliance manufacturer, would like to apply a long, thin strip of EPDM, crushed EPDM that is, foam, along a large polypropylene part. The customer plans on applying the part by hand and notices that this foam can be overstretched. you think the general purpose acrylic will be a good adhesive, but what tape construction type would be best? So before we get to the answer here, just as a quick reminder, we have transfer, when you're laminating to a foam, you're going to be working with a double-sided tape, which is going to be either a transfer tape or a double-coated tape. So you really just have two options here. And a transfer tape is going to be that unsupported free layer of adhesive, and double-coated tapes have a carrier that provide dimensional stability. So what might the answer be here? The correct answer, because we want to stay within the general purpose acrylic because the customer likes that adhesive's performance, we just wanted a double-coated version of it, right? You want that carrier for dimensional stability. So if the customer had purchased a transfer tape and they know that this foam is stretchy, the applicator might be applying it by hand. It's a long, thin strip, so maybe they're stretching it out too much as they're applying it down onto the substrate. And they might see that the part bonded well, and they walk away, and then 20 minutes later they come back and they see it's lifted up. Oftentimes when you're stretching these foams on a substrate like that, you're building up stress in the foam, and it wants to return to its normal length. And that stress is going to be fighting the adhesive. And to alleviate that stress, you want to use a double-coated tape because as the applicator is applying that part by hand, that carrier prevents that foam part from being stretched out. And then you won't have that built-up stress, and then you're going to have a nice bond that will remain for the life of the part. Okay, so the specific product there is going to be FBA 8960. As you can see there, it's a double-coated polyester tape. And then, of course, we'll get into a liner in the next example here, but that tape comes in a variety of liner options. Okay, example 2. Your customer, an automotive tier supplier, would like to apply multiple die cuts of flock for buzz, squeak, and rattle reduction throughout the inside of the overhead console. They requested a low VOC acrylic that passes a variety of automotive specifications. They would like these small parts presented in a cookie sheet format. So this is kind of a three-part question here that's kind of summarizing a lot of the steps within the core series. Which adhesive would be best, which tape would be best, and then which liner would be best. So let's break it down. Let's get to the answer here, and I'll walk you through what I would recommend. So first of all, we had heard that the customer wanted a low VOC acrylic. Sometimes in automotive, we're seeing that automotive OEMs want low VOCs. They have specifications that are being able to measure those VOCs that are coming out. A lot of people like the smell of a new car when they first buy one, and it's unmistakable, that smell. The sad part is that actually is volatiles that are fuming out of all the different plastics within the car. And there are some regulations that are especially coming from Asia and Europe around that. It's a problem for all plastics that need to be addressed, but Avery Dennison is addressing that with our low VOC acrylics. We have two adhesive options within the core series. We have low VOC acrylic and high performance low VOC acrylic. And this being automotive, the correct answer would be high performance low VOC acrylic. You're going to see some high temperatures in the car. You might have to deal with some difficult specifications. So we would recommend the high performance low VOC acrylic for automotive. In addition to that, we have the OEM Cert Finder, which you can just Google Avery Dennison OEM Cert Finder, and you can plug in different substrates, laminates, tapes, or OEM specifications, and you can download specific certifications against that specific specification to share with your customer to make sure that your selling process moves along quickly here. So the high performance low VOC acrylic is available on several different products in the core series, and they pass plenty of automotive specifications that we certify to that you can download on this website here. Okay, so getting in, so we've identified the adhesive now. Oh, Jim, get back, please. We've identified the adhesive, but now we want to identify the specific tape here, right? So if you remember the example, they're asking for flock tape bonding here. And we make this step easy for you guys. I would recommend the 0900X, which is that same adhesive with a single-coated black flock already available on it, okay? Now, if you needed a different color flock or a different thicker flock, for example, we would recommend our FT1149X, which is a transfer tape version of the 0900X, and you could laminate that to your material you're sourcing. Again, it's the same adhesive, same thickness, same liners are available. It's just that 0900X is already going to be laminated with the black flock. So now we've got the specific tape. We're preferring 0900X here. But now we're digging into the converted part style here. They wanted a cookie sheet part presentation. And that's where we're going to recommend that 12-point board, and I talked about it earlier. The 12-point board has that rigidity and stiffness so that you could have something like a 12-inch by 12-inch section of the liner, and then you could have a variety in a high quantity of small little die-cut parts that is common for these buzz, squeak, and rattle applications. That way, the operator on the floor at this tier supplier can hold a cookie sheet of these, easily peel off these little die cuts, apply them to the different parts they see buzz, squeak, and rattle issues, and quickly move on with their day. So as in a review here, we have the high-performance low VOC acrylic, which is offered on the flock tape version of that FT0900X. And then we offer that in a 12-point board version, but also in polyester liners and poly-coated craft liners as well. So that was example 2 here. We're going to move on to the summary of today. Thank you guys for listening in here. Summary of this was step 4, determining your tape construction. Again, we learned about the different constructions available, how there's transfer tapes and how they could have single or double liner configurations. We have double-coated tape, both standard and differential, where differential is you could have 2 different adhesives on either side. We also offer single-coated tape in the core series. In addition to those constructions, we have multiple liner options available throughout. The SCK, the poly-coated craft, the 12-point board, polypropylene film, polyester film, and glass seed. And this 4th step is all about incorporating the other 3 steps to make adhesive selection easy for you guys. Of course, we're always here to help, but to get you moving quickly, using the Core Series portfolio product selection tool is an easy way to get to a great recommendation. So with that, I think we're headed into Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'll say thank you, Scott. We are heading into the Q&A. So I was going to start addressing some of the questions that came in, and if you and Deanne could stay on and give us these answers, and people out there appreciate it. So first question goes back to the 12-point board. Is there silicone on both sides of the 12-point board liner?
The answer to that is most likely. So for double-sided tapes like transfer tapes and double-coated tapes, we will have release coating on either side. Now for FT0900X, where that's a single-coated tape, where there's a release coating just on the inside so that the adhesive removes, we don't need a release coating on that other side, so we don't have it there. In situations, I don't believe we offer any double liner transfer tapes that use the 12-point board where there would be no release coating. So the answer is it depends.
All right. Thank you for that one. Second question that came in, this might be like a silver bullet here. Is there a universal liner that works for everything, or one that satisfies most applications?
One that satisfies most applications. I would say the poly-coated craft probably could satisfy most applications. It comes at a little bit more of a premium, but what's great about it is that it has that polyethylene layers on either side there that makes it moisture resistant, and it makes it lay flat. So that usually makes it well-rounded to work for a lot of applications. And I realize it'd always be easier if there was just one universal liner and just one universal tape that works for everything, but there's a reason why we offer all these different things because of these different properties that are needed here. So my answer to that question, though, is still going to be polycoated graft.
Okay. And maybe Deanne can handle this last question. Deanne said, how soon can I engage your technical team when it comes to choosing a construction?
So we do have an application call line that you can call immediately whenever you have a question. So if you go, or you can also email tapes.orders@averydennison.com. So either one of those you can, it's actually in the back page of your course series brochure is your quickest information on how to get to someone for technical assistance. Does that answer your question?
Okay. It answers my question. I hope it answers your question as well. So once again, thank you for attending. Later today, you'll be receiving a post-event email, and that email will be a short feature story titled "The Right Construction" and a survey. So we always value your feedback, so please fill out that survey so we can continue to get better at what we're doing and involve the course series program. If you would like a copy of today's presentation, please contact your Avery Dennison account manager. I just want to say, thank you for your attendance throughout this webinar series. We look forward to bringing you more insightful information regarding the course series, with our number one goal to make it easy for you to do business with us and make it easy for you to do business with your customers. Thank you again. Have a good day. Have a great holiday season, and we look forward to talking with you in the new year. Thank you.